Some have called our city's budget a moral document because you can look to it and know a lot about our city's priorities and values based on how we spend our public money. As part of reimagining public safety, we should examine how we invest in public safety. What are the components? Where are the priorities? Where are the contrasts? Do you want to see our city dollars spent differently? Let's examine our 2020 City of Minneapolis budget.
I think we need a stronger police presence. Now we have pandemonium on the streets, mayhem. It's like Gotham, but it can't be done in isolation. We also need other measures, recapturing the culture in our community so that young people have hope and providing jobs.
With the 2020 budget revision, we had, they're operating now about $185 million in the police department. In terms of parity amongst prevention, intervention, enforcement, and reentry, I mean, it is anywhere near parity. We really, as a city, actually really don't have any reentry. So reentry is when we are welcoming our neighbors back to our community after being incarcerated.
I don't think that the police are really a violence prevention tool, all right? Let's just go there. The horse is out of the barn by the time the police show up. Although, if you see a state trooper on the freeway, you slow down. Okay, so there is something to be said about deterrence. If you and I are standing next to a police officer, it's highly unlikely that someone will come up and rob us.
So historically speaking, we've operated at about a $1.7 million budget. We have 5 staff. It's I always say we're a small but mighty team inside of the city. A lot of the work that we do is contracted out. We really believe strongly in putting that money back into the city. So the budget does pay for those 5 staff people, including myself, to push that work out, to navigate systems, to develop grant opportunities and manage them. But most of our work is funneled back into community-based organizations and individuals to do work in community by community.
It was like pulling teeth to actually make that happen. And in fact, I worked with my colleague, Councilmember Fletcher, for us to move over $1.1 million that was allocated for an increase to the police budget so that they could civilianize, I think it was 8 positions, which means putting a civilian in the job that currently a sworn officer fills, freeing up those 8 officers then to do more sworn law enforcement related work.
Look, I guess it depends on what side of the fence you come on. But look, what I think that is, I understand those that want to take some of the money and allocate it into good, meaningful, worthwhile programs. I'm all for that. But I think that if you're maliciously trying to siphon money from this chief's budget just to be spiteful, well, it imminently harms black people. Because I know a lot of us are a little ticked off about encounters with police, and rightfully so. We still need safe streets, but done in conjunction with a police department that reflects the people in which they protect and serve, but also a police department that has a budget so that they're not having shortfalls when it comes to serious crimes that are being committed around our city.
So if we're talking about, let's say, a heart attack and trying to prevent people from having heart attacks, the most expensive way to help somebody who's had a heart attack is at the hospital after they've had the heart attack, when you do some sort of really intense surgery or put them on some sort of intense drugs for a while. The much more efficient and more humane and like pro-people way of helping folks is to help them with the underlying health conditions that lead to heart attacks.
I think all hands have to be on deck, you know. That's what I'm saying. You can't cut the police budget and then expect gun violence to be solved. We're at 68 murders, 68 murders. We were at about 14 to 19 murders pre-George Floyd's killing. It was absolutely murder, it was execution, no doubt about it. But since then, to have 59 plus murders is unreal. We have to deal with what's going on in our community too.
So we believe that we should use every tool in the toolbox to addressing public safety, and that we should really be thinking about it like any other pandemic. In the same way that we think about the COVID outbreak, that we can mitigate the risk factors for certain populations through education and exposure, that sometimes the antidote is in the virus itself. So we have to look at people who have experiences with violence as a resource, not as a liability. They are the ones who have the experience and expertise to teach us how to pull this next generation out of making those choices. And so we lean very heavily into the fact that, again, like I've said before, we don't throw our people away, and none of us should be judged by our worst choices.
Why is this politicized? Why is this so dramatic for us to get any money put towards violence prevention? And why wouldn't we want to stop the violence before it happens rather than continuing to put money into the response that happens after the violence has already taken place? That's a way to save lives. That's a way to prevent permanent disabilities due to major violent injuries. It is a way to save trauma, both individual, family, community. Why wouldn't we do that?
I think that there are good cops that prevention is, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Look, I think this, again, I want to reiterate, I think the chief absolutely, his heart is in the right place. He absolutely wants to eradicate this crime that's going on, because we deserve safe streets. But I think prevention is how you look at it. I mean, can we really expect him to be the sole responsibility for solving the crime? No, it takes a community effort to help this man.
We're all one bad choice away from being the people that we serve. And so it really is about infusing a level of humanity and science, right? The science tells us that like a virus, violence is learned. And so if you can learn a behavior, you can unlearn it.
This is actually a huge job creation opportunity, particularly for folks who are the hardest to employ in our city. Talk about Black men and women who have been incarcerated, have records, but have an incredibly unique, rare skill, special skill that we need in our city. Why wouldn't we pay them to deploy that skill to keep us safe? Why wouldn't we do that? It just feels like common sense.